Imagine if it were possible to access almost all artificial intelligences for just a few dozen euros a month. You could have direct access to Leonardo, which generates images, or even to Midjourney. Or you could generate audio directly on ElevenLabs, or even get access to the latest version of Grok, or even VO3 to generate videos. What I'm about to show you is perfectly legal, and I find it really interesting for people who don't have a big budget, who can't afford to buy each service individually, to use this kind of service to expand your creativity and actually test out all the services very easily, with almost all the features. And of course, I'll also give you the pros and cons, and the things to watch out for. I'll leave you a link in the description to this service, which I think is the most complete, but I'll also leave you other links so you can explore all the possible options. First of all, how is it possible that this kind of service, where you pay just one monthly subscription, lets you access the latest versions of Grok, GPT, Google, Gemini, and Claude? Well, it's actually very simple. These services are kind of based on the gym membership principle. You know, there are lots of people who pay for a gym membership, but where gyms really make their money is from all the people who pay for a subscription but hardly ever go, or even just let their membership keep running without ever going. Well, here it's kind of the same thing. All the services are pooled together and made available to lots of users who pay a monthly subscription. And these subscriptions are much cheaper than if you were to buy each service individually. To give you an idea, it starts at €5 per month, and the €23 subscription already lets you do a ton of things and, of course, gives you access to all the AIs. And when you access an artificial intelligence, like Claude for example, you go to Claude's website and pay for a subscription. What they do is connect APIs. So, if you will, they pay directly for these different services as they are used, which allows them to make this service available to all their users. And you, as a user, well, you might use Claude just a little, which might cost them about €1. Then you use Midjourney a bit, which might cost them €2. And then you use Google's VO3, which might cost them €3 or €4. And in the end, really, when you add it all up, you might end up costing them about €10 in usage. And if you took that subscription, well, they'll make a profit. But if you took that subscription, well, they're betting that other people will use less than you and will simply pay for their subscription without actually using its full potential. And as I said, it's perfectly legal because companies like OpenAI allow the use of API keys, which let you consume the service OpenAI, for example, on a pay-per-use basis. So, they're simply betting that, well, some people will use the full service and they'll try to make a profit from those users, but it's going to be a bit tight for them on that front. But on the other hand, there are other people who will keep paying their subscription, like with a gym membership, and never actually use it. And for you, it's really interesting because instead of paying, for example, VO3, €200 a month, then ChatGPT, €20 a month, then Grok, €40 a month, and even Midjourney, maybe €60 a month, well, here, for potentially €20, you'll be able to use all these different services. And how does it work? Well, you see, there are points. You'll get 1 million points per month for €22.99, for example. And each request you make, for example here with Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is the latest solid version, you'll need, for instance, 335 points. So, just to give you an idea, to use up 1 million points, you'll already have to make a lot of requests. 1,000 requests, so 1,000 questions to Gemini per month, would cost you about 330,000 points, which is about a third of the points in your subscription. So for someone who really wants to test out AIs, create things with them, even make an anime, compare business ideas, generate all their marketing, create their website, their content, their images, well, here you really have something very interesting. To give you an idea, recently, I did some tests on everything related to horse racing using Grok 3, making predictions, seeing if we could find statistics. Basically, I had some fun with it. And I used Grok in a specific case because it's really good at anything math related, and calculations in mathematics are a big challenge for artificial intelligence. And then I thought, okay, now I want to test Grok 4. I just want to try it out and compare the results. And looking at the latest tests and benchmarks, you can clearly see that Grok 4 has very good results. Except that if you actually want to upgrade to Grok 4, well, you're already going to pay $30 a month, or even $300 a month. And as we've seen, to get 1 million points on the other service that combines all the services, you'll pay less than $30 a month. And that's where it gets really interesting, because I can just decide overnight, okay, I want to use Grok 4. That's going to use up 773 points. And that's it. I just have to spend my points and I'll be able to get answers to my questions directly without having to subscribe to each service every time. And on top of that, it has another advantage. For example, VO3, which was hard to access for Europeans, is now very easily accessible thanks to this kind of service, which always lets you have the latest versions of artificial intelligences. And honestly, it works really well. Here, for example, on ElevenLabs, which is also quite expensive, I was able to generate a message very easily. Hey there, it's Terry. So here, as you can see, I don't have a man's voice, I have a woman's voice. But don't worry, you're guided every step of the way. Look here, for example, if you want to rework this voice with, say, a man's voice, well, the artificial intelligence will guide you every time to get the best use out of this AI. So, all I would need to do is click this button, hey there, it's Terry, and there you go, it's done, it works. And another thing that's really interesting is that, for example, here I generated an image with Leonardo. Okay, I generated this image, no problem. I got the result, and then I can use different features to make the AIs interact with each other. I can easily ask this AI to animate that image afterwards, or I can generate another image with Google to compare the results. I just have to click here, for example, and there you go. The image will be automatically regenerated with the original prompt, but using another service, Google's service. And bam, I get the result right away. And that's also really convenient because with just a few clicks, you can connect different services without any hassle. And so you'll find services in different categories. For example, the official connections are going to be the major AIs like GPT, Grok, and Claude. But then, you'll have other categories as well. For example, for image generation, you'll have the latest versions from Google. You'll have Flux, you'll have Leonardo. For audio, you'll have, for example, ElevenLabs, Cartesia, and the famous AI LUE that's been getting a lot of attention. For video generation, you'll obviously have VO3, but also Runway, AI LUE again, and even the latest version of Kling right here. And it's always the same principle. You say to yourself, okay, I want to create something, I want to try it out, I'm going to use this AI. Click, I select it, then I enter my prompt and off we go. And then, beyond that, you'll have access to the different agents that are available and integrated, for example, in ChatGPT. For example, if I go to translation here, I'll be able to use a service that will automatically translate things for me, for example, into English. Or here, something to do text analysis or help me write, whether it's a story, for my website, or for marketing content. So it's pretty crazy, and as you can see, it works really well. But of course, there are also some buts, and I have to warn you about that. And actually, those buts aren't that much of a problem. For example, when you use the real version of ChatGPT, no matter which version, you'll also be able to use its memory. For example, if I'm talking with ChatGPT and I tell it that it's important to remember certain things, it will keep that in memory and be able to use it again in different conversations. In the case of a shared service like this one, well, you won't have any memory assigned to you. In itself, it's not a big deal. You'll just have to restate the context very precisely each time you make a request. But for those who work with ChatGPT's memory, this can also be a drawback. As usual, you'll also be able to chat with the different artificial intelligences, and each conversation will appear here on the left. This is also a bit of a black box because you'll be going through the API, and you don't necessarily know what this site will do with your data. So if you have something a bit confidential, like client data to process, or an idea you absolutely don't want to share, or an issue you don't want to disclose, well, it can be a bit tricky. Now, I'm not saying that the creators of these services are watching every conversation that happens, but it's definitely more of a black box and less regulated. Another important point is that you'll end up mixing your chats with the AI for text generation, image generation, video generation. You'll end up here with a bunch of different chats, so you'll need to find a way to stay organized because it'll be harder to find each conversation and also to locate all the files and items that have been generated. Or for example, on ChatGPT 4, I'm used to talking with ChatGPT by voice, but here that won't be possible. The only thing you'll be able to do is maybe give it an audio file or use your microphone to directly transcribe information into text. So sometimes you'll run into certain limitations. But as I said, that will never stop you from generating your videos on Kling, on ILO, on VO3, or from giving ChatGPT huge amounts of text to process, or from generating all the images you want with Leonardo. It's just that, from an organizational standpoint, you won't always have access to every tool each time. Here for example, this is the real Leonardo interface where I'll get 4 image suggestions, I'll have a history, and I'll be able to directly re-edit the different images. Well, here, this is the shared Leonardo interface and I'll only have the interface with the prompts. There you go, now you know the pros and cons of this type of service. In any case, it lets you access all the AIs out there. Some aren't available yet, so I'm leaving you other links in the description because this isn't the only service out there. It's the most complete and user-friendly one I've found, but I wouldn't be surprised if other similar websites come out soon. I hope, in any case, that this will let you experiment. For me, that's the most important thing, that you can try out all the different AIs, compare them, and form your own opinion, so you can simply develop your own habits and have the tools you personally like to reach your goals. So I wish you the best of luck with your projects. Take care, ciao.